Kraken was looking for a global CMO and head of growth. April 22, I finally joined. And by June, everything had collapsed. I really didn't have any clue what I wanted to do. I was pretty clueless.
Forbes named you top 50 most influential marketers in the world.
If I have to summarize the core pivots in my career, most of it is accidental and coincidental. Somebody put me in the right place at the right time. I said no to Spotify the first time.
When you were brought into Spotify, what was your role?
The moment you now plant the seed for marketing in an organization like Spotify, you have to prove yourself. And the first question that gets asked in a product-led company that has marketing in second phase is, but is it really attributed back to marketing? Then the battle starts to begin, where you have to prove incrementality. If I'm spending $100 on marketing, what is it really bringing back?
A campaign or a hack you found?
Playlist creation was that insight that if I could get you to create a playlist, it makes it harder for you to leave because you've invested yourself.
About Kraken, what was the story behind it?
I was given enough of a runway to still hang in there. Built the growth engine from scratch. Kraken had not invested in marketing at all in the first 10 years. We had built ourselves as a category leader for professional traders in the first few years. This year will be our best year ever.
Using AI to your advantage, and what's something that worries you?
You have to figure out how do you want to use AI to amplify your efficiency, but don't lose, your own serendipity and creativity and irrationality.
What are you most excited about India's tech ecosystem?
It's just insane. Every time I come back, I experience something. I'm like, dude, wow.
He wanted to play cricket for India. No big plans, just a few pivotal turns. Mayur Gupta went from a C++ engineer in Delhi to leading growth at Spotify and now marketing and growth at Kraken. We talk about the moments that shaped his career, lessons from Spotify, building trust in crypto, and India's rise. Now I bring you Mayur.
Mayur, excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Shiva, for having me.
Man, what an incredible journey you've had so far. Forbes named you top 50 most influential marketers in the world. You've done some amazing high impact work at Kimberly-Clark, Spotify, of course, we all know of, USA Today, and few others, and currently at Kraken, one of the leading crypto exchange firms in the world. Before we get into that, Mayur, I want to know your journey, how it all started. We're really a byproduct of environment. While growing up in India, what really shaped you the most?
Yeah, look, I was like, I think almost 1 billion plus of us was born in a normal middle class family. My dad was in the army. He retired, got into business, started his own business. So, me and my brother, we were growing up grew up in Delhi. Between the two of us, it was pretty well determined that he will follow my dad's path. And then I was pretty all right in studies, that I will do something. But to be very frank, back then when I was growing up, I really didn't have any clue what I wanted to do. Like most kids, I wanted to play cricket for India, played for college here in South Campus. I was pretty clueless, didn't have any vision, no dreams, but just, was living one day at a time. This is mid-90s. I think there were a couple of pivots in my career, in my life. It was my mom's influence. She had been a teacher all her life and really wanted me to do something meaningful. She knew that I was never going to be a doctor, but she had a vision. She wanted me to join the army because her side of the family was all in the services. So I went to the NDA, didn't feel that was, that is where my heart was. So pulled out. Thankfully, accidentally, back then in the late 90s, if you had to get a job, there were 5 or 6 verticals where you had a chance. Computer science was one of them. It was booming. So I did my major in computer science, became an engineer. Not that my heart was there, but I felt, I had no other clue, so might as well start there. So I started my career as a C++ engineer. Did that, started my career actually here, very close by in HCL Tech, was an intern. Took a full-time gig. Sapient was a multinational. A lot of multinationals were coming to India. They were picking up all these young kids who would be totally fine and love working 24/7. So we were working 24/7. So I joined them. Thankfully, in my second year, or as life would have it, they asked me to go on site. That was the thing back then. It was a big deal for anybody working in tech to leave India, get a chance anywhere outside. So we were building an online education platform for Cisco. I was one of the lead engineers there. So I was asked to go on site. And then since then, life's pivoted. But if I have to summarize the core pivots in my career, um, most of it is accidental and coincidental. Somebody put me in the right place at the right time and shaped it. But spent my first 6 or 7 years as an engineer, became a lead architect, was building solutions. The big pivot came when I was at Sapien and we acquired an ad tech product in Miami. So that was the first big pivot in my life when I evolved from pure engineering to building products for marketing and advertising. So it was an ad server ad tech company building source bid management systems. This is mid 2000s, 2006, to be precise. That's how I evolved from pure writing code, building solutions to now building products and scaling it for a very new space because digital and tech was a new thing. Tech and marketing was converging. Did that for 4 or 5 years. That is how I laid the foundation of what marketing and advertising was. Had no clue.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what a brand is, an advertiser. You do your major in computer science. You really look down upon marketing. You think they have no clue. So that's how my foundation for marketing was laid. And then the second big pivot for me was at Sapien for almost 12 years. That was my first phase of my career. Then I finally left to go on the client side in 2012 when Kimberly-Clark was looking to really scale through e-commerce. They were looking for technologists who understood business and outcomes in marketing and advertising. So I had this great opportunity to join and be part of the leadership team running e-com and digital transformation for, imagine, a 150-year-old company, 20 plus billion in revenue, 80 different countries, selling Huggies and Kleenex and Kotex, but now through a very different channel and medium. So that totally changed my perspective. As an engineer and especially in a services company like Sapient, sometimes you are trained to sell complexity. That's what consultants do. But being on the client side totally changed your perspective. You start to think about outcomes versus inputs and outputs. You think about the end user. What are you going to change in their lives? And then since then, life just kept building on. Once in a lifetime opportunity to run growth at Spotify. And now I feel I'm the best place in my career so far. Playing this role at Kraken. I think it's one of the most mission-driven companies I've ever worked at or ever encountered. And it's amazing to be surrounded by such smart people who are driven by one mission to change the world and bring financial and economic freedom. So it's been tons of failures through the way. Obviously, I've skipped a bunch, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of hard work, a lot of accidental moves that
we will get into those failures and accidental moves and all that stuff. Your framework around it.
I do want to say I'm a hardcore cricket fan, like most Indians are. Played a lot of tennis the last few years of my life. Sports has played a big role in my life. I have 2 kids. My wife, we are all now based in Miami, but come here to India very often every year.
Yeah. Let's step back a bit. Your time at Kimberly-Clark. In simple language, Mayur, how did that kind of opportunity happen? And also, you were brought on for something. What was your role there? And what were you most, I would say, proud of? And that also eventually, because I feel that was your first major marketing/growth role. And what was that one thing that kind of like gave you the thing, man, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I want to focus more on stuff that I had no idea about, stuff that I was totally feeling, because sometimes when you look at someone's profile and someone's run, these things highlight, but what's not very evident is how there were days and months when I had no freaking clue. But how it happened, so I had spent 12 years at Sapien. I was absolutely insular. I was, one of the strong top performers in the company and was working hard like many people. But I had no idea. So when Kimberly-Clark reached out, I honestly didn't know what Kimberly-Clark was, that they were the corporate brand that had Huggies and Kleenex and Kotex and so many incredible brands underneath. Was pretty surprised, but went through the process, made it. So somehow they found me because they were looking for people. But there was one thing that happened, which is very similar to your journey, Shiva, that I think 2 years prior to that, that's when I realized that I was so insular that I had no point of view. I was a hard worker, got really deep into whatever I was doing, but I didn't have a perspective on anything. So there was a point where I said, you know what, I'm going to start writing.
Hmm.
And then the first blog I ever wrote took me 3 weeks to figure out what should I write about, because I felt that I didn't know anything that anybody would care about.
Mhm.
I literally remember that process where I was going through and I just couldn't. Then the first thing I ever wrote about was this funny blog post about garbage collection and fine tuning, performance tuning a JVM, which is a Java virtual machine, because I was like, that's the only thing I've recently spent so much time on. So I wrote about it. But the pivot for me was I realized that if I had to do something in my life, I had to have a point of view. Doesn't matter where it was. And then there was a pivotal point that led me to that. I started practicing Nichiren Buddhism in 2006. My wife introduced me to the practice. That totally changed me gradually, not just in my personal life, but also in my professional life. So I think somewhere my writings played a role in being discovered by somebody who was looking for this technologist who understood, business side and growth and marketing. So I'm sure that's how they found me. It was a life-changing experience at Kimberly-Clark. You're coming from a very different world onto the brand side. You realize that you have 60 seconds to talk to somebody and make your point. If you're talking to the president of the company, you have 60 seconds to make your point. So there's no longer a deck with 80 slides. You have one slide, summarize your point, and then you have a chance to stay back. I also realized that technology is not the end state. It's not the outcome. It's an enabler. And you have to reorient yourself to be outcome driven. There were some tough parts because I was reporting into the CMO, but I was a technologist and my role was to build a digital infrastructure for the company to make e-commerce as one of the strongest channels for the company versus brick and mortar or in the multi-channel retail players, which traditionally sat in the CIO's world. So this is when the world was figuring out where does this thing called digital sit. And of course, now you don't use that word because we all live and breathe in a digital world inherently, right? So that phrase has disappeared, rightly so. But back then it was a thing. So it took me a long time to understand how to navigate that in a big organization. How to build partnerships, how to build trust internally. There's a lot of focus within marketing to build trust with the external customer. And it took me a lot of time to figure out there's also an internal partner, an internal customer too, which in more product-led companies is a product team, it's a data team, and so on. And how do you have to build that trust? So I feel my thesis coming out of Kimberly-Clark, I spent around 4 years there, was that as a marketer, it is very important for you to root yourself in the core product. It is very important for you to root yourself in data, especially in the world today where outcomes matter, before you root yourself even in brand, because we get so infatuated about brand and storytelling and creative. But in a product-led world where more and more companies are less CPG and more tech, inherently tech-driven, inherently product-driven, you have to first earn the respect by absolutely championing the product, data, and technology. Then you say, okay, now I understand the brand. Because if you're not in the weeds, if you don't understand the complexity, you can't tell stories that make sense to the world outside.
Got it. And the next big thing, I'll step back. You mentioned that you got introduced to Buddhism, and you were also talking about failures in between. I read you founded companies a couple of times, and also I think you gave 8 interviews at a Fortune 500 companies, and you were hired by some massive company, but I think in the end they decided not to hire you. How did Buddhism help you both personally and professionally?
Yeah, so I think the core foundation of my life is now based on Nichiren Buddhist philosophy, which is this principle of cause and effect, where my present is a manifestation of my karma from the past, this lifetime, previous lifetime, and my future is a manifestation of what I do today. So Newton's law, but it took me a long time to really understand it. But basically it means everything that happens in my life, which is my universe, people I meet, relationships I make, financially, professionally, personally, everything is a pure reflection of my inner self. So if I have to change any of that, the transformation has to begin from within, not without. But it also believes that everyone has the potential to get to their ultimate state, that I can have whatever ambitions and dreams, only I have the potential to fulfill those. So it's this innate conviction that you have to build every day,
Mhm.
because I can be in this state like I am right now, but something happens and you get punched in your face and you go into the state of despair and hell. But we have a daily practice where you bounce back.
Mhm.
So the philosophy absolutely, like a gazillion times through these years, have given me the courage to keep fighting. Most importantly, it is to enjoy the journey
Yeah.
amidst those obstacles and battles. So I've been fired once, for example. But how you bounce back from that, because no matter what you think about yourself, and that
Mhm.
moment happens, it sets you back.
Mhm.
It looks like a failure.
Mhm.
But then you need to have a life philosophy, whatever that may be,
Yeah.
to lean on that. Finally, it starts to make you believe, there is something stronger and bigger
Mhm.
downstream. You just can't see it. The human mind can see it. So you start to believe in this thing called life,
Mhm.
which is mystic. It is scientific, but it's also mystic. And then you start to continue to build this belief in your own potential. That no, no, no.
Maybe feel free to give an example.
Look, when I was when I was let go from Freshly, for example,
Mhm.
it was a startup. We did wonderfully well just before our acquisition with Nestle. I was let go for some very good reasons, and I back then obviously I didn't think it was the right thing to do. But looking backwards, if that hadn't happened, I would not be here. So one thing led to the other, and so on. But it was a few tough hours. After that, you bounce back and analyze. But what was most important for me was, see, when something like that happens, if I hadn't been practicing, I would have spent months thinking about why it happened and somebody else did something wrong.
Mhm.
But because of this philosophy, in a few hours, I was asking, what could I have done differently? Because it's very easy to have the victim mindset. It's very easy to find the problem outside.
Mhm.
But because of this philosophy, I was able to channelize what was happening and realize that there's this concept in Buddhism called transform poison into medicine.
Mhm.
So how do I transform the situation to become stronger and figure out what areas do I have to work better as a professional, as an executive, when I get my next gig? And then this belief that, dude, there is something out there, I just can't see it, but it's got to be 10 times, 100 times stronger and better. And that's, that exactly is what happened in hindsight.
Yeah, got it. Moving to Spotify, uh, one of the best consumer companies out there globally. Um, Mayur, how did that happen for you? Were you looking out? Were you looking to join Spotify? And when you were brought into Spotify, what was your role and the impact you created there?
Um, yeah, it's all serendipitous, but Seth Farbman, who was the first and technically the only CMO Spotify's ever had. I got to, give all the credit to him. He's been one of my mentors who's really learned a lot from him passively and actively. So actually, the way it all happened also taught me that never take any moment for granted. Everything builds up and you never know. So any interaction, always give your best. So it actually came out of nowhere. So I used to, when I was at Kimberly-Clark, I continued writing. And back then, a lot of the Fortune 100s and 1000s were trying to figure out how do they operate at this convergence of data, tech, marketing, growth, etc. So I was writing on that topic, and some of the stuff that I wrote was published in Harvard Business Reviews and stuff like that, because it was a hot topic, and I happened to have been given an opportunity at a Fortune 100 like Kimberly-Clark. So through that, I got a lot of interesting positions. So I was fortunate to have been on IBM Watson's CMO advisory board. Not as a CMO, of course. I was nowhere close to being there, but I was one of the few chief marketing technologists or people who were at that intersection. So I was invited by John Iwata, who ran IBM Watson. And that's where I met Seth, who was the CMO at Gap, at one of the meetings we had in New York. I had no clue, but we had some, we were in the board meetings, met him a couple of times. He left Gap to join Spotify. He was looking for someone to run growth at Spotify. This is early days of Spotify, late 2015. He reached out to me, and that was almost a time where I was thinking, you know what, I want to move faster. I felt that there's a lot more I want to do than the pace at Kimberly-Clark. Massive scale, but still a 140-year-old company and so on. And that's when he reached out. And as life would have it, I said no to Spotify the first time. Again, I was naive, to be honest. Didn't have the vision, didn't see what Spotify really was. Joined a private equity based healthcare company because I thought, I'll take all my learnings, apply in healthcare. I was fascinated by fintech always. I was fascinated by the financial sector. Or PE firm will turn it around rapidly. We'll learn a lot. I wanted to be in that. Then I also realized very quickly that, when you're a PE firm, the focus isn't as much on the mission. The focus is on the turnaround and the exit.
Yeah.
So it was a very different mindset when you're walking down the corridors. Thankfully, and fortunately for me, that Seth and Daniel hadn't closed the role. They were still looking. And in the following board meeting that happened, Seth still asked me, hey, the doors are still open. And then I was ready back then. So when I entered, I'll share stuff that I don't know if I've published or shared before, but I had no freaking clue, man, what growth meant at a company like Spotify, which has such great inertia, and where a lot of the growth at a product like Spotify is product-led, where marketing amplifies it.
Yeah.
But the core growth, the core product market fit was already there in the first 10 years with zero marketing. Like when Seth joined and he established the roots of a core global marketing function, the PMF was already there at scale. The company was already a couple thousand people, I think, or at least more than 1,000. And valuation was a few billion and so on. So what took me a long time, to be honest, once I left Spotify, to understand on how to operate, sitting in a marketing organization, how to operate in a product-led company, where marketing as a function is established in the second phase of growth. If you look at Kraken, if you look at Google, Spotify, Uber, they reach an ultimate state of product market fit and scale without marketing as a core driver, because the product inertia, either through virality, loops, network effects, is so strong.
Yeah. Feel free to give an example, let's say for Spotify.
Yeah.
Just
So
for the audience.
Yeah,
to
like
kind of
at
get the sense.
Spotify, by the time the marketing function was established, it was already an established brand because of the great experience it had. I don't remember the MAU numbers, but 30 million, 25, 30 million monthly active users. So that is pretty high scale. The moment you now plant the seed for marketing in an organization like Spotify, you have to prove yourself because the company knows they need marketing because the scale is stalling. But they're not used to how marketing works. They're not used to the incrementality of marketing. They're not used to the turnaround times, the payback periods of marketing. It's not instant. So the mindset shifts. Marketing in a CPG organization where you're the only growth function. You're the only growth driver because you're building a physical product and marketing is giving you a shot at driving reach and awareness. And you're probably hoping that somebody comes and sees you on the shelf and they probably buy, right? In a product-led company, your journey from $0 to $1 billion in revenue, or somewhat like that, happens in the absence of marketing. So the entire organization is so used to those mechanics, which doesn't need more. Now you parachute yourself as a marketer. They want you, but they're not really sure, what are you driving? Then the first question that gets asked in a product-led company that has marketing in second phase is, but is it really attributed back to marketing? How much of that growth would have happened regardless? So now now after the 12, 15 months of honeymoon period, now you start to question incrementality. That's when then the battle starts to begin, where you have to prove incrementality. You have to figure out attribution. If I'm spending $100 on marketing, what is it really bringing back? So that is the journey that I am. My role at Spotify was to lead growth marketing, which included all the new user growth. The first focus was on scaling the free user base, then the premium subscriptions. And the big challenge was also to prove incrementality. So back then, multi-touch attribution was a new thing. So did that. Partnered a lot with product to drive free user base growth because there was the biggest pond to fish for Spotify for paid subscription was its own free pond. The freemium funnel at Spotify was one of the aspects that differentiated itself from, let's say, Apple iTunes, or Apple Music, or Amazon for that matter. But the struggle for me was this learning curve to understand what role does growth in marketing plays with growth within product. How do you tag team? How do you really go into the weeds within product? And how do you operate when growth inherently sits in product? And so that was a lesson that I found it. I learned through a lot of mistakes. But looking backwards, I would have probably executed a lot of things differently.
Yeah.
But so the thesis for all of that, again, for marketeers sitting in a product-led organization, is invest as much energy as you can to build that partnership with product, get into the weeds of your core product and category, own that before you think about owning brand and creativity, own the data. When you're walking down the corridors, data should be oozing out. You have to own what's happening. You have to own payback period. You have to absolutely know if you're spending $100 in marketing, how long does it take for you to bring the 100 back? And then how much more do you bring back? Everything else are mechanics underneath.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, look, the mindset in a product-led company for marketing is still marketing as a cost center. Because for 40 years or so, marketing only sat in CPGs, where you spent money and you hope that it'll pay back. All the measurement models were 6 months, 12 months to analyze, is it really working? Whereas we are now living in a rapid, fast-paced, experiment-based, inherently digital world where you don't have a chance unless you're able to absolutely prove incrementality and you're able to prove marketing's impact on the business.
Got it. So in simple language for the audience, product-led growth means where the product is so good that people are looking for it, and so it's mostly referral based. And what you're saying essentially at Spotify, when you had joined, until then, they didn't really spend much on marketing. It was mostly, again, not product market, but product led. Mayur, maybe give couple of examples. One on the, I would say, a campaign that you ran or a hack you found where you were able to, let's say, acquire more users or retain more users. On the other side, maybe we can talk about a failure as well.
Yeah.
That didn't work out, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So first of all, the product-led growth can have many mechanics, referrals being one, strong product, word of mouth. Some products build virality. So I'll talk about that, like ear-in music and Wrapped at Spotify. Or network effects like Slack, where the value of the core product continues to amplify as you bring your network on, and so on. But a couple of examples. One of the big challenges that we were looking at was to curb churn from the free user base. So like I said, that was very critical, but the TAM was so massive that we didn't care up until that point, because it's almost like you bring 100 user to try Spotify. That was very easy to bring 100 free users. And then we had this rhythm to scoop from that 100 users, 10 or 12, or 14 or 15, every single time you're scooping. So and then the retention for those premium users was very strong. So the business just kept growing. But we realized that the free pond was churning fast. So that's not a good sign. So while your scooping process is working well, you want to fix your free pond too. Otherwise, you'll eventually saturate your TAM, right? So we did a lot of work, because I also had a data science team. There was a global data science team, but also my team had a small subset of it, where we were trying to understand behaviors, causality, not just correlation. And obviously, everybody remembered the Facebook and Meta 7 friends in 10 days correlation. But you realize that, look, you can't just take that and try to find, those all correlations, and you have to run a lot of experiments to get to derive at that insight. So one of the insights we finally figured out was try to create some moats for the users. What will make it hard for them to leave? And we realized one of those moats in the early phases of Spotify user base was creation of a playlist. So if a user had created a playlist in their first 2 weeks, their propensity to retain was 38-40% higher or something like that. So then the entire journey in your taste onboarding was, how do I get you to build your playlist? Because imagine, it's like a moat. It's like LinkedIn has your network as a moat. Netflix has your watching history and context as a moat. If you leave, yes, you may find that content elsewhere, but you lose all the context. So for us, back then, I'm sure there's a lot more now. Playlist creation was that insight that if I could get you to create a playlist, it makes it harder for you to leave, because you've invested yourself. And that's how actually led to organic playlist creation too. So if you don't organically create it, we will get early signals from taste onboarding and give you a default playlist. So that hooks you in and makes it harder for you to create. So if I remember it right, I think playlist creation was only available in the paid subscription model. Then we tried to have it available in free. So the learning was, you have to understand user behavior on platform, and you have to get early signals and experiment and see how do you get closer and closer to causality versus correlation. So a lot of experiments like that. The one campaign, to answer your other question, that I was proud of, I won't say that I was the one who orchestrated it all, but we played our part, is what's now become a world platform, which is Wrapped. So that is how it all started. But what was fascinating for me was how Wrapped is a great example of how creativity, which is inspired through data, because it all started with looking at user behavioral patterns, how users were listening to different types of music, different types of playlists, what they were naming their playlists as, and then how do you use that raw data to come up with some amazing creative storytelling.
Yeah.
And then the one part that was missing was, how do you use that to build a loop? How do you inspire users to share their ear in music, their Wrapped, off platform, within their network, so more people see it, especially if you're an influencer, if you're an artist yourself, could we make that as a flywheel, as a viral loop? So the more artists share their ear in music, their Wrapped, more of their network will see it, and they will click on it and either now become new users of Spotify or drive stronger engagement. So that's the virality and the loop structure, the flywheels that I'm referring to, which I think finally was unlocked. And then I just saw a post from Daniel last week. I think there were 800 million or so Wrapped hits or something like that. Like, it's insanity, but that's how. But there's so much to learn from those mechanics that I'm very excited about what we're doing at Kraken now.
Yeah. Talking about Kraken, but you seem pretty pumped and excited about what you are doing at Kraken. Were you already investing in crypto? Were you already paying attention to, crypto, the world of crypto? What really, got you excited about Kraken? What was the story behind it?
Yeah. So,
and also maybe we can talk about what Kraken is.
Sure. Yeah. So Kraken started as one of the largest, now one of the largest centralized exchanges in the world. But in the last, 2 years or so, we've evolved ourselves now into an end-to-end financial ecosystem, an infrastructure play, that is trying to accelerate the global adoption of crypto, but also to transform the world into this digital open economy. So we evolved from just being a centralized exchange to now a multi-asset platform where fintech platforms like neobanks are using our rails to drive fiat to crypto on ramps, for example. There are crypto native trading firms that are using our APIs to have high frequency trading. We have institutional players who are using us for custody. We have retail players that are using us for payments. We've just a few months back launched our product called Crack, which is a lot of fun product, but it's kind of in early stages of perhaps our version of a neobank where you can save, you can send globally, etc. So it's an end-to-end financial ecosystem, a lot more coming, rooted in crypto, etc. So look, my journey in crypto actually began being a failed entrepreneur. I tried 2 startups, had no clue. I think I had a lot of energy when I was early on, but didn't have the wisdom. I have a little bit of it now, but now I don't have that same energy to be an entrepreneur myself. But if you're an engineer, you feel you have to ride on this technology movement and waves, and you feel you can build anything. So in 2016, very close friend of mine, he's an engineer as well. We worked together for a few years at Sapient. He was an early guy in crypto. He built his own wallet back then. He's the one who pulled me in 2016. But to be very transparent and honest, I did not get into crypto thinking I'm going to change the world. It didn't matter to me. It was a tech revolution, and all the smart people were talking. I was like, okay, I should at least get to know about it. And seems like everything's going up. So early early way to get in and try to make something. So got into it in 2016, but because I did not get into it for reasons that were more close to the mission, I obviously got out of it in 2019 when the markets totally collapsed. But that is how it started. I got really close to some of the ICOs that were happening locally where I was. Got really close to a lot of the projects, a lot of the altcoins.
In Miami?
No, I wasn't in Miami that time. I was in Chicago and New York. So those are the roots, but got out of it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, something came into me and I felt that, look, when the e-com movement was happening, I was very early stages of my career. So I had no clue, like I said before. This time I didn't want to miss it. So thankfully I got back in 2020. And as life would have it, I was investing in a lot of secondary market and Kraken during the peak of the bull run, there were a lot of secondary market players who were reaching out to investors. So I had given a very small check to Kraken in the secondary market. So that's how I had known about Kraken. And like I said, life takes all these turns that you don't expect. So in 2021, we decided from New York that we'll move back to Miami for personal reasons. And the world had changed. You could work out of anywhere. So I was convinced that I'm done with New York and I wanted to go back, even though we love New York. And then Miami by then had finally evolved from being a bling city to be rooted in crypto, Web3, fintech. A lot of these players were moving to Miami, also from LATAM as well. So in the back of my mind, I always had this dream. I wish someday, now that I'm going to be in Miami for the rest of my life, that I could get into that space, fintech or crypto. And then serendipitously in late 2021, Jesse, who's our founder and chairman now, co-founder and chairman, Kraken was looking for a global CMO and head of growth. And this was the peak of the bull run, mid to late 2021. We started talking. I wasn't looking for a change at all. I sat on the board of USA Today Network. It was very hard for me to think about leaving. But then, as life would have it, in April 22, I finally joined. And by June, everything had collapsed in a way that had never happened in crypto, coincided with fintech's collapse. And thankfully, I was given enough of a runway to still hang in there, built the growth engine from scratch, pretty much hired everyone that is in the growth team now that I feel very grateful and proud of. And interestingly, Kraken, very similar to Spotify and Google, like I said, had not invested in marketing at all in the first 10 years. All our growth happened on the inertia of a great product. We had built ourselves as a category leader for professional traders in the first few years. We had launched our retail product just a couple of years prior to that. But then Jesse and the team knew that we were now ready to build an engine for the next phase of growth. That's how I joined. And then started to build the engine, the platforms, the data infrastructure, capability to build media, hired some of the best talent out there. But that was a time when even agencies did not want to work with us because, there was a lot of stigma around crypto back in
that was
late
around
2020.
FTX collapse.
Yes, that was pretty much the second half of 2022. But 2023 is when I feel that in a way our growth engine was ready. And while everybody else was pulling back because they had, they were trying to be the loudest voice 2 or 3 years prior, we were quietly just building our infrastructure and core products. So we were moving forward. So 23 was a great year for us. Then 24 was a better year. Then this year will be our best year ever. So, but still a lot to learn, a lot to scale and grow. I often say this is still very early days. I think every Krakenite is super pumped and excited about what's to come. We've been sharing our financials transparently. Arjun's brought on tremendous vision and focus and intensity, the convergence of a decently sized global player, but with a very startup day one mindset. And knowing him and knowing our culture, we will keep this day one mindset where there's velocity and quality is not a choice. You have to learn how to build velocity at the right level of quality every single day.
Yeah. No, I noticed that I think either you or someone from the team published the numbers, the financials on LinkedIn. And this quarter, the past quarter, was the best quarter ever. And it's only, I think, quarter by quarter you're growing. And so Mayur, you brought on Kraken as a head of marketing and growth. What exactly is your role? What are you responsible of?
Yes. So let me clarify, because sometimes obviously marketing's purpose is to drive growth. But growth, when you talk about growth, it has a few other elements. So when I joined as a CMO, and the core functions within a typical marketing organization is as an engineer, I think about boxes and circles. Right. So I'll start with the stack, like you have data and technology also within marketing, because that plays a massive role, right? All the MarTech and AdTech ecosystem. Then you have all the content layers, then media. And then I think about marketing as three flywheels that need to run and leverage all the layers underneath, right? All the system underneath. The three flywheels are very simple. Grow the brand, grow the user base, grow user value. In other words, create demand, capture that demand, and retain that demand. In very simple terms, if any marketing function can do these three and operate at the intersection, you're growing the business. But then there are other elements that require ultimate growth, and that includes product. So I now own and drive product growth, which includes anything from onboarding, which is a massive part of growing any business, especially in fintech, where KYC and the entire process can be extremely leaky. So how do you build experiences? How do you remove friction? In some places, how do you add friction if you feel that is the best for that user? Could you rather add friction early on, etc.? So product growth across the funnel. So bringing users on platform. How do you drive early habit creation so you retain them stronger? And then how do you build levers to build more sticky behavior to bring them back to the platform? So very strong partnership with core product teams that are building new ways to monetize. But then growth is responsible ultimately to drive efficient growth, efficient scale across the globe. So that includes product growth, growth engineering. So we have engineers who are who bring the velocity to ship stuff, growth design, so in core experience. So when I say growth now, it includes all the core marketing functions, but also growth data, growth product, growth design. So you ultimately are owning the end-to-end growth engine. And a lot of this, to be honest, the credit goes to Arjun as he came on board and took on the CEO role. He had this vision because he had seen that at Meta. He had seen this in a number of companies where marketing and product were not isolated. So this is almost a bridging function between core marketing and core product. You need this function that sits in the middle that accelerates product adoption and scale and continue to prove product market fit.
Got it. And Mayur, look, we live in a world of AI now. Look, half of marketing has been done by AI, or it's at least helping. Like, for example, in my case, it'll help me create a campaign. It'll help me create a video for my, let's say, a campaign I'm running, or a copyright, or a headline that will give me the best click-through rates. So we live in a very interesting world. What's something that you're excited about being, or let's put it this way, using AI to your advantage? And what's something that worries you about AI in marketing? We'll talk about marketing and growth context.
So there's a lot of synergies between AI and crypto, in the sense both will change the world. Both are here to stay. Both will have skeptics. Anything that has so much power will always have both sides. And I'll work backwards from this absolute belief that there will be headwinds, there will be tailwinds, but eventually the world has changed already. This is how e-com started. Then the digital revolution started, and this is how crypto started. A lot of skeptics. I think we're finally over the inflection point where no one's questioning, where will it stay? You're just wondering, how do I get in and when do I get in? It's more or less. You may say it or not say it, but behind, back of your mind, that's what's running. AI is the same way. I think we're going to learn a lot. I won't say half of marketing is AI. I would say perhaps a lot of marketing is influenced now, made more efficient with AI. Um, of course, you will see tons of examples where you see content and you're like, dude, this is AI. And I think that is where the balance exists, where there's no question that if you're not championing the application and adoption of AI, you're going to fall behind. Absolutely. That's a given. In your professional lives, in your personal lives too. Like my father-in-law here, he's retired, but that's a topic he talks with his friends, and he has a case study every time we talk. So it's inherently in our lives. Everything that I'm researching on, every strategy, I'm debating and discussing with a few different AI platforms because they're not judging me, right? So it's very easy, but I also have my minds and eyes open to validate whatever I'm learning. But we obviously believe in AI massively at Kraken because we'll be naive if we didn't. Within our core product, how we engage with the infrastructure, how we leverage the infrastructure, how do we build our own infrastructure internally? Because we'll obviously, being in the category we are in, we don't want to, there are things that you absolutely will always own. Within marketing and growth, it's absolutely central. But it's no longer, thankfully, it's no longer a bolt-on. You don't have to remind people. Everyone's day-to-day operations are leveraging in one way or the other. But one thing we always talk, and we share a lot of examples, is where you do not over-index, where as marketeers and as storytellers and as a brand, we never want to lose serendipity. See, because if you do that, if you lose that, you become absolutely mechanical. You become a utility. And also, there are certain categories where nothing matters more than trust. And once the trust is broken, it's very hard to gain it back because the users have infinite choice. So you have one chance. Back in the day when users didn't have enough choice, sometimes loyalty could be earned and sometimes loyalty could be forced. Today, you have to earn loyalty every single day because the barrier to leave and barrier to enter somewhere is very, very low. So if you lose trust, in how you respond to someone, or how you are distributing who you are, or how you are supporting somebody when they need you, then it's very hard for you to win them back. So I think that's the part where, in a world that will be always dominated with AI, brands that still care, brands that still value human connection, that still have the irrationality of storytelling and creative thinking, they are the ones that will differentiate and win.
Well, give an example of both serendipity and the trust.
Yes. So there was a point where we were pushing our social team to leverage AI a lot, to have some cool creative. We did test a lot of that, and you'll still see it. But we realized very quickly if our handles are absolutely flooded with AI content, it starts to become binary. You start to lose who you really are. So that's what I mean by you have to find your own balance. You have to figure out how do you want to use AI to amplify your efficiency, to do things faster, to learn faster, but don't lose your own serendipity and creativity and irrationality. So while we do that, there is still a bunch of creative and content that we will produce ourselves because it just feels different. And it's very obvious. Look, if the entire category, if the entire social platform is flooded with unidimensional type of creative, then the brands that still value human thinking and emotion, are the ones that will stand apart. And so, yes, there is no question. The amount of research we are doing, the pace at which we are now analyzing data is a lot faster. But how we apply the data to solve business problems still needs human thinking. Because at the end, as long as it's the human that is consuming your product, you will never lose that.
Yeah, got it. And an advice for a marketeer, one skill that will never go away. Even let's say if there's tons of AI helping you become a better marketer, but there's one skill, not helping you become a better marketer, but kind of like taking away your job. Skill that will not fade and it's very valuable.
So this one, I'm going to say two things. One is more about there was an inflection point back in 2013 where I was getting a lot of gigs to be in product, and I had to make a choice. Will I be a will I go down the engineering path and be a CTO someday, or go down the product path, or go down marketing? And I chose marketing for some weird reason, because I ultimately realized that marketing didn't have enough people who were coming from my weirdish background, data, tech, engineering. But then I realized actually marketing wasn't as complex as the academic made it appear. All the 4 A's and X number of C's and P's and so on. I felt that good marketing, which actually has not changed. So channels have proliferated. There's more data, more attribution, more tech, more AI. But good marketing is still good marketing. But the way I always taught myself what good marketing was is what our parents have taught us. Be honest, be authentic, keep up your promise. What that means is, if you're building this, or if my product serves, this is the value that my product gives, don't go out there and overpromise. So the problem is not in product sometimes, or most times. The problem can also be in the promise you made. If you overpromise and underdeliver, people will churn. But if you underpromised and delivered at that level, perhaps you bring in the right user who won't churn, even if you are a moderate product, right? So for me, the first principles of marketing will never change. Doesn't matter how users communicate, etc. But I'm an absolute believer that in today's world, the magic is going to be less and less in core product, because technology is becoming more and more commoditized. You're not even writing code now to build stuff, and you're shipping. Magic is going to be continuously more and more in distribution. And that is where AI is going to have the biggest disruption, is how distribution evolves and changes. So that, I think, is first principles, won't change. To be a successful marketer, I think that, you have to be, I think it's in every function. If you're an engineer, you have to think like a product person. If you want to be a great engineer, you have to think about outcomes. You just can't think about only technology, not think about the problem it solves, because you write shit code then. If you're a product guy, you have to be a designer. If you're a marketer, you absolutely have to own your data. You have no chance otherwise. You have to understand the complexities of technology, and you have to operate like a product person. Don't get fascinated and excited about vanity, proxy KPIs. How many people saw shit and clicked on it. Doesn't matter. At the end, if you want to be a successful marketer, you have to be hip to hip with the business, because marketers have had this tendency to drift away. We want the rest of the company to talk our language. We want everybody else to think about what we think, versus realizing that, no, you have to stay connected to the mainland. Don't go to your own island, and talk the language of the business. Be the adapter, but don't expect the rest of the business to talk and think like you.
Yeah. And your weird experience actually ended up becoming your moat in marketing, which is engineering and data.
Yes, as an engineer, you're trained to be a system thinker, right? Yeah. You go top down and bottom up. So I think that's helped me personally to understand the complexity, especially now in growth, which I truly love. Having an amazing growth engineering team, product growth, connecting all the pieces, working very closely with product. Think about product market fit. Think about how do you maintain product market fit? How do you lose it? Think about levers. How do you tap into the ecosystem externally to see, can you find and come up with new growth levers? So I think it's that engineering foundation that I feel helps me in connecting multiple pieces and try to apply them.
Yeah. Look, you're here in India right now, in Delhi NCR. Right before we started recording, we were talking about how India has changed and evolved, how terrific the energy is, how the next generation is thinking, bigger, and they're more ambitious. Seems like you've been paying attention to India, and you've been spending time. Mayur, what do you think would be India's unfair advantage? Or a follow-up could be, or parallel could be, what are you most excited about India's tech ecosystem?
Yeah, I would call it a fair advantage. I think India deserves to be where it is, and Indians deserve to be where they are, and all the recognition and all the velocity that you see. But I think the advantages are, look, I feel we are, as Indians, we always talk about our population. Right? I don't think it's anything unique in a negative way.
Yeah.
For the longest time, and we have our own reasons why it hasn't been curbed. I think we have finally figured out how to maximize the value from that population. And what I mean is different parts of the equation. One of the most valuable TAMs available in the world, one of the youngest populations. I think the highest 27, 20-year old demographic is in India, inherently digital. And with all the tech movement and the revolution in the last maybe 12 or so years, with UPI, with the largest digital payment infrastructure, and with all the infrastructure that's been built, and the mindset shift that has happened, I think now that scale in population is a massive asset, where that scale is finally producing and coming up with ideas to even revolutionize some of the most archaic categories and sectors, agriculture and stuff like that, supply chain. And it's just insane. Every time I come back, I experience something. I'm like, dude, wow.
Yeah.
It is just, you just wonder, dude, how is this happening?
Yeah.
Like 1.5 billion people, how is this printout coming to my house in 6 minutes? Who was waiting? Who was standing, under my house, who could deliver a printout in 6 minutes?
For the audience, give some context around.
So just 3 days back, I was in our house here in Gurgaon, and my nephew needed a printout, and he said, "Oh, I'm just gonna Blinkit it," and he goes and he uploads the file, and in 6 minutes, there is this envelope with a front page and the actual printouts. So. Funny enough, in my home office, because we are virtual, we all work from home at Kraken. My printer has been broken for many months. Man, it's a pain because I have to go drive, get a printout because we're so lazy to buy a new printer and stuff. But it's just insane. I mean, there's a funny joke from the last trip I had. I think it was published everywhere too. It's on a more funny side, but there were two kids living in the same apartment complex, but two different towers. And there was, I'm forgetting what app they had used. One of these,
Porter,
of course, probably
Porter or delivery,
Porter or something. And the delivery person is the one who made the social reel. He said, I'm being asked to pick up the remote for one of the video games from Tower A and deliver it in Tower B. So it shows. I mean, it shows. Obviously, there are many connotations to that. One, if I'm a parent, I'm thinking about, okay, what are we doing to our kids? They're living a life which is very different from how any of us grew up. Two, but it also shows the scale and extends to how our lives have changed because of tech adoption, because of everything that's happening in India today.
Yeah. Talking about Blinkit, when it first started, Mayur, of course, I started ordering it.
Yeah.
And I order it, and suddenly I hear a bell, and I was like, "It can't be possible. It cannot because I just ordered.
Yes.
It's been few minutes,
Right.
and the guy was right there, and in my mind I was like, was he just standing, waiting outside of my house, or? But later on, I realized the dark store from where they operate was pretty close to my apartment complex. Moving to our final section, Mayur, look, we know you as one of the best marketers out there in the world. What do your friends know you for? Who are you outside of work?
I would say, I mean, I that's a tough one to answer. But what matters to me, to be honest, is, look, things in our professional lives and stuff we will do as long as we're enjoying the journey. Whatever the end state is, doesn't matter. I would have probably said something very different 7-8 years back, where I had this thing, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur again, and I want to have my own thing. But I've realized that definition of success in life for me is very different, and it's all about how do you create value in your life every single day for your own life and others around you. It's the application of every single Buddhist principle that I have learned, and I keep learning every day. So I would love for my friends to think that I was someone who lived those principles. I was someone who helped create value in my life. somehow I'm able to impact at least one life
Mhm.
in this universe in one way or the other. Hopefully a lot more, but at least one. And someone to just say, yeah, he's a good human being.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter where I am. In my toughest moments, I want to be a good human being, and in my best moments, I want to be a good human being. And I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. I think what I've learned now is the bad days, again, going back to what I learned from my mentor Daisaku Keda, is as the night gets darker, it only means that it is getting closer to dawn, which means that as things get tougher and tougher, it only means you're inching closer to where you'll have a breakthrough. So when you believe that, and if it's happened to you for 1,000 times, it's almost like the movie's replaying.
Yeah.
So when you're in a tough moment, you realize that this is going to end. So don't worry too much. Keep fighting.
Yeah.
Don't lose. So I have 2 daughters, very blessed, and I tell them, we often talk about studies, and they're growing up now. One of them is getting ready for college. I say, I could care less which college you get into. Fight. Give it your best shot to get into your dream college. What is most important is that you're finding joy in those tough moments.
Yeah.
Somehow you're enjoying when you're going through pain. Don't suffer. So as long as my friends think that I'm that person who is going through pain, but I'm not suffering, and I'm not letting them suffer, then I think I'm adding some value.
Yeah. Love it. Mayur, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.